think anyone that's seen even one Quentin Tarantino film would agree that he is a lot. A lot of basically everything. Maybe gore or excess blood initially comes to mind, with this film so often filled with over-the-top gunshot wounds and continuous teeth-clenching body horror. But Tarantino's work isn't just limited to that. Whether it be enormous casts of major actors, lengthy conversations other filmmakers may complete in less than a minute, or extended runtimes well over 2 hours, often with longer director's cuts released later on. Whether this comes across as too much is absolutely up to the viewer. But as someone who clearly makes films in his own interest, with himself as a target audience, it's clear that Tarantino never holds back. His dialogue is my personal favourite aspect of his work, often giving incredible characters seemingly innocuous dialogue that hooks attention so well. It can sometimes sway too far into rambling, but by and large Tarantino writes excellent scripts. Regrettably, his writing for and about women usually misses the mark, but I think he understands that and has adapted to it in his later films. He won't ever be a feminist icon, but at least he doesn't botch it anymore. When his dialogue is paired with a great character or a passion-filled, fast-paced plot, his films regularly reach incredible heights. Tarantino is the ultimate cinema lover's filmmaker because he loves cinema so much. His films seep with passion, and that's why I've chosen his filmography to act as the subject of my first tournament. A solid, highly unique set of features that each show brilliance in different ways. With each piece seeming so unique, it makes sense to build a tournament to find the best overall Tarantino film, looking into different aspects of great filmmaking within his work. And let's be honest, the best way to sort out anything like this is a bracket. None of those silly tier lists or ranked videos. A pure, good old bracket. So, to make his filmography into a fully functioning bracket, we really need to start with one of the magic numbers. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, and so on. Because without having a body of work equal to one of those numbers, it makes things a lot more difficult. So we need a way of getting rid of some of these films to get to one of the magic numbers. A pre-tournament would be the most obvious choice, but a group stage would work too. Now, a pre-tournament is a rather inconvenient way of starting off, but 9 is also a very inconvenient number to start with. However, it will still run with the same matchup system as the rest of the tournament, and will leave us with the 8 films that we need for the quarterfinals. Consisting of a maximum of 5 sets, each matchup will run with the first 3 win condition. Each set will focus on a different aspect of Tarantino's filmmaking, starting with plot and moving through characters and visuals. With Tarantino known for his dialogue, that will make up the 4th set, and best scene acting as a final decider if needed. As far as the pre-tournament is concerned, 7th will play 8th, with the loser battling bottom for the last quarterfinal place. In order to determine which films take the seeded and unseeded slots in the quarterfinals, I have taken every single one of his 9 films, treating Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2 as the same entity just as Tarantino does himself, and ranked them on an average of their Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes, and IMDb user scores. As you can see in the table on screen, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Django Unchained, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood rank the highest. These will be the 4 seeded movies in the quarterfinals, with Inglourious Basterds and Kill Bill qualified as unseeded films. The bottom 3 will take part in a pre-tournament, determining which 2 join the others in the quarterfinals. So that's Jackie Brown against the Hateful Eight, with Deathproof waiting in the elimination match. Pitting 7th seed against 8th, Jackie Brown will play the Hateful Eight for a place in the quarterfinals. In terms of plot, Jackie Brown absolutely thrives. Despite seeming initially simplistic, the piece evolves into an open-ended, unpredictable drama, and a setup like that often leads Tarantino to create his best scenes. Like a lot of QT's most respected films, it's difficult to ever pinpoint where Jackie Brown is headed, and that unpredictability simply outweighs the efforts of the Hateful Eight. It's a film that could never compete with something as story-driven as Jackie Brown. The Hateful Eight is a meetup of character story, but any feature in that style will always rely heavily on its characters. Something like Ben Wheatley's Free Fire is an excellent usage of such a style. Even Tarantino's own Reservoir Dogs manages it, but these films will always be criticised for a lack of plot. So the point goes to Jackie Brown. Tarantino has the ability to pair great plot with great characters. There's an argument to be had that Jackie Brown is the first truly successful combination of the two in Tarantino's filmography. But what that does mean is that however great a position The Hateful Eight finds its characters in, they will always struggle when they need a boost from the non-existent plot. The Hateful Eight is a character piece, with a runtime usually reserved for a plot-heavy feature. Its length angers it down, when it could have been set free by a much shorter runtime. Major Warren, Daisy Domergue, John Ruth, all of these suffer from their elongation of time on screen. Jackie Brown, however, revolves around its trio of Jackie, Ordell, and Max Cherry. Originally created by Elmore Leonard in the novel Rum Punch, Greer, Jackson, and Forster helped to create some of Quentin Tarantino's most lifelike characters. Their reality and their humanity makes them enthralling, and the power shifts and power moves they make just feel that extra bit more enticing. These moments alone offer more than anything The Hateful Eight has. 2-0 to Jackie Brown. However, if Jackie Brown was to fall down on anything, it would be its visuals. Maybe not when you look at Samuel L. Jackson's hair, but the film isn't about visuals, so it doesn't necessarily suffer as a feature. Yet, it does mean that The Hateful Eight has a chance, and it absolutely takes that chance. Genuinely beautiful shots of its winter setting, complementing the wonderful production design from within Minnie's haberdashery. The understanding Tarantino makes of the room they spend the majority of the film essentially trapped within is outstanding. None of Tarantino's later work leaves any room for improvement in the visual department, giving The Hateful Eight a clear win in set 3. As we move on to the fourth set, dialogue, any chance of a Hateful Eight comeback evaporates. Alone, The Hateful Eight is one of Tarantino's weaker scripts, often lacking the punchy progression a Tarantino film is known for. There are a few great sequences of conversation, but the piece heavily relies on shock value rather than complementing it. So when compared to the exquisite script owned by Jackie Brown, there is no competition. Tarantino's only direct adaptation to date comes as a feature filled with fascinating discussion, enthralling confrontation, and passionate conversation. Jackie Brown wins the point hands down and qualifies for the quarterfinals, 3-1. And in the elimination matchup, we have The Hateful Eight versus Deathproof. However limited The Hateful Eight's plot actually is, it's better than Deathproof, the single most compromised Tarantino film. There is reason for that, and Tarantino has discussed it himself in interviews, how audiences didn't, and theoretically still don't, understand the film, and that's why they don't enjoy it. But whoever a film is made for, whether it be a particular audience or even just yourself, it needs substance, and Deathproof doesn't have that. Staples of Tarantino's work, shocks and twists litter The Hateful Eight's plot, and bar the 2 car scenes in Deathproof, there's nothing really to compare. Those scenes are admittedly excellent, but they're absolutely drowned out by its non-existent plot. Tarantino acknowledges that a lot of his creations are stolen from other films, but that doesn't always mean he steals from the right films. Hateful Eight isn't amazing in this situation, but it beats out Deathproof. The Hateful Eight may have no likable characters, but at least they can be enjoyed on a sadistic level. Their constant battling allows for a unique cinematic experience. In Deathproof, however, the only real character of bulk is Kurt Russell's stuntman Mike, and past the first act he has nothing more to say than a couple of lines. He massively suffers from an incredibly drawn-out build-up, and when you look at the multiple female characters and their endless conversations about sex, it feels shallow, which is probably because it is. At least the Hateful Eight's characters have motive, and that's something that you cannot say for Deathproof. 2-0 to the Hateful Eight. And just as Jackie Brown was beaten out in the visual department, so is Deathproof. The Hateful Eight is up there with the best visual Tarantino films. It looks stunning, and however the argument is made for Deathproof's 2 car scenes, with wonderful editing and stunt work, they aren't enough to compete on such a scale, especially when the rest of the film is added into the conversation. It can't be expressed enough how great The Hateful Eight looks, and it'll be tough for any other Quentin Tarantino film to compete during this entire tournament. Robert Richardson has done an excellent job as cinematographer, and sent it through to the quarterfinals with a flourish. So that's a 3-0 win. The Hateful Eight takes the final place in the quarterfinals. So with The Hateful Eight joining Jackie Brown in the quarterfinals, It means Deathproof leaves the tournament in 9th position, aka last. Before it disappears from the tournament forever, I think it's fair to give Deathproof a bit more airtime. The car crash scene and the crow's nest scene are excellently constructed, tense sections of cinema, highlighting the true brilliance of practical effects. But the film as a whole is misguided, and Tarantino took things too far when relating to his own love for exploitation films. Absolutely make a film you yourself would love, but simply making a piece that would sit in a bygone era rather than bringing old ideas to a modern audience is not enough. So however good those two stunt scenes are, they do not make up for the shallow, overly long piece of cinema that is Deathproof. Welcome to the quarterfinal draw, where we will discover the 4 matchups taking place in the next video, pitting 4 seeded teams against 4 unseeded. So, as we pull the first one out, we have Django Unchained, one of Tarantino's bloodiest films, but also one of his most popular. And Django Unchained will be playing Kill Bill. Remember, it's both of the films together as one. And the third one out is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Nominated for a lot of Oscars last year. Against the winner of the Eliminator matchup, the Hateful Eight. Interesting visual matchup there between the two. So the third seeded film out is Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino's first directorial feature, in which he stars himself. And that is playing Inglourious Bastards. Big matchup, that. The highest team not seeded in this tournament. And Pulp Fiction, often seen as Tarantino's best, against Jackie Brown, the winner of the qualifier number 1. To run through the quarterfinal matchups once more, we have Django Unchained, the 3rd seed, against Kill Bill, his longest film and equal 5th seed. We have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, scraping in as a seed, against the Hateful Eight, the winner of the Eliminator matchup. We have Reservoir Dogs, his first movie, against Inglourious Bastards, the highest non-seeded film in the tournament. That'll be a really close matchup, I think. And finally, we have Pulp Fiction, the top seed, against Jackie Brown.